Are UConn's bigs the X factor for the tournament run? You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Just wanted to say how thankful we are for all of you out there. We are the only UConn program that is covering both the UConn women's and men's basketball programs, the hoops capital of the world, and we're thrilled to bring you the coverage you deserve. Listen, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet and it wins. All right, quick little intro. We're going to bring in T. Baker because he was at the Big East tournament. He is our every Friday contributor and contributor to Hoops Capital of the World and co-host on Locked On UConn. T, I asked that cold open. Are the bigs the X factor for this team to make a tournament run?
Hey, Mark. Good to be here, fresh off a Big East title. So happy to be chatting with you today. I love this question. I think, one thing that we have heard all season long is just that UConn's guards are the dominant force. We have 3 All-Americans in Paige Bueckers, Azzi Fudd, Sarah Strong. But one thing that I learned from watching those 3 games at Mohegan this weekend is just how critical UConn's bigs are to their success. So I think Jenna El-Alfie obviously is the starter. But Ice Brady in the semifinal game hit a really big 3 at one point in the game. And I think what makes Ice so critical to UConn's success is her ability to stretch the floor. If you're guarding Ice Brady, 6'2", 6'3" forward, who does not typically drive to the basket, she's usually hitting mid-range shots or even the 3. That forces the opponent's defense to respect her on the mid-range, stretching the floor, leaving players like Sarah Strong, Azzi Fudd, and Paige Bueckers open. So I think it's the combination of those bigs and then the depth that they provide in allowing UConn to run different lineups that makes them the X factor this season.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think sometimes the fans want to see, okay, well that's fine. Let's just get Sarah at the 5 and let's play a bunch of guards around her, or at one point, I think before she was lost for the season, I think Morgan Shelley was in there. You know what I mean? So like having like a pseudo quicker, smaller forward lineup that can do a bunch of everything is kind of where everyone wants to go because they want to see this small ball up and down lineup. But this is a quote from Gino. All the analytics, all the metrics show our small lineup gives us the biggest differential, but we need to be good with our big lineup too. So I'm gonna lean towards the analytics of Gino Auriemma and his 12,000 wins and knowing what his team needs, because to have both, think about the most dominant they played all year at South Carolina. Jenna El-Alfie was she was crazy good. She was decisive. So what do you feel is the difference? Do you think some of that is just them not having 100% confidence that they can do it, or is it more just the time on the court? Like, because Janet doesn't get as many minutes because they do play more of a smaller lineup event overall.
I think in this time of the year, it's just about roles being defined. One thing that's clear and that was stated, pretty clearly in the pressers around the Big East tournament is that like they're not looking for Ice Brady to put up double-digit points. They're not looking for Jenna El-Alfie to be the primary scorer, but they're looking for them to grab the rebounds, to play defense, and to create mismatches, and to ultimately create situations where you have to respect them enough to leave UConn's big 3 open. So I think it's really about the intangibles. Gino mentioned many times this weekend, the things that aren't showing up on the box score. That's what they need from Ice Brady. They don't need her to score 10 points. They need her to come off the bench, hit a jumper or 2, and create a situation where she is creating a bit of a distraction, a decoy for the defense to allow UConn shooters to do what they do, which is shoot and make their buckets.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Ice does that well. Like I think when she's playing her best, and she did over the weekend or last weekend, kind of feels like it's the season just kind of keeps like getting away, right? We're getting a lot closer. My shirt says there is no tomorrow because there isn't now. Once the NCAA tournament starts, that's it. So it's just, but she has been playing well in terms of what you just described, where she doesn't have to come in. I feel like maybe that's where the beginning of the year, do you feel like the beginning of the year, she probably felt like she needed to elevate her game to a certain extent? Maybe she felt some of that pressure from Jana taking some of her minutes.
I think that the key moment was when Jana was switched to the starting lineup and Ice went to the bench, and that changed her role. It wasn't that she needed to be the big scoring contributor. I think they look for more scoring from Jana. They look for more back to the basket layup. They're looking for 15 to 20 minutes from Ice to come off the bench, do those intangibles, stretch the floor. And I think that takes some of the pressure off of her. I don't think she thrived in that starting role. And I also think that suits the type of player she is. She's not a type of player who needs the glitz and glamour. She isn't the type of player who needs the box score stuffing. She wants to win. And that's what she said. We don't get a lot of Ice time in the media, but after that quarterfinal win, we did get some time with her. And that's what she said. She said, we're here to win. She's not too concerned about her minutes. She's not concerned about being a starter. And the best UConn teams historically have had those role players that are team first, hustle when you're in, get the job done and get a win. And so I think that's what makes her so interesting to me, and what makes her, I think, really a key piece to UConn's title run this year. And last season, Aaliyah Edwards went down with an injury, in the Big East tournament. And that's when Ice Brady stepped in for the semis and the finals and got on the first team last year. So she shows that she can perform when she's needed the most. And I think if she's able to be in a position where the coaching staff says, look, we need you to come off the bench and do X, Y, and Z, she can do that and make a difference for UConn.
Last question before we move on. And we're going to switch gears for a second. In terms of more impressive this weekend, was it Paige Bueckers' record third most outstanding player, or Azzi's all-around play, Sarah Strong of the big three, so to speak? Who did you think played the best, or was most impressive in your eyes?
So post-game, after the title game, Gino made a joke that he thinks Sarah should have gotten the MOP nod. And I don't think that there was much of a joke in there. I kind of thought she should have. We're used to Paige doing what she does. She's got the name. She's got the flash to her game. But I think what Sarah Strong does that no one else does is put up points, rebound, and make a difference in the game in so many different ways. So I've always been partial to bigs. I love a big. I've always loved someone who can body in the post. I miss the sort of traditional back to the basket players like Sylvia Fowles, like Tina Charles back in the day. So I love a big. I might have some bias there, but I have on multiple occasions felt my jaw have to be lifted up when I watch what Sarah Strong does. And this weekend was no exception. Double doubles in every game, 16 rebounds in the semifinals. I mean, come on. How are you going to not give that person MOP?
She's, because her name's not Paige Bueckers right now. But I agree with you. But I love Gino's candor, because Sarah's ridiculous. All right, you don't have. I'm the head of the Sarah Strong fan club. When I was telling people she should be the number one pick in the draft if you could take her. So I'm with you. All right. When we return, we're going to talk about a little bit about the power rankings of the NCAA tournament, as I'm calling them, the 5 1 seeds: South Carolina, UCLA, USC, Texas, and UConn. And we're going to talk about that coming up after the break.
We're all about the stats, because numbers don't lie. When it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are an MVP level type. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear and wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventure to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I'm missing my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use. And then when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can place $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
And we're back on Locked On UConn here with T. Baker, contributor to Hoops Capital of the World, and my co-host on Fridays of Locked On UConn, recapping the Big East Women's Tournament, but also looking forward to the NCAA Tournament. All right, so the power rankings right now, how would you stack rank the power rankings if and do it based off of you and your thoughts versus kind of what the bracketology is telling you? Because I have a hard time. And if you have South Carolina as the number one overall team, I think you and I have to have a conversation. But I don't. I think it's hard to. I think it's hard to put the number one overall team as South Carolina, as I've seen, considering their biggest loss of the year is against the UConn team that everyone thought couldn't even sniff beating them, and they beat them by 30. So tell me why I'm wrong, and then stack rank your teams.
So for me, South Carolina does get the number one seed as a journalist, as an analyst, as a fan. I think UConn should be ahead of them, but it comes down to quad one wins. Like South Carolina is 16-3 in quad one wins to UConn's 6-3. And I understand one of UConn's quad one wins was a dominant victory over South Carolina on the road, but you got to put some respect on an additional 10 victories in the quad one category for South Carolina. Go ahead, Mark. What's your rebuttal?
No, the one rebuttal to that is it reminds me of, and this is what I'm getting, like this weird PTSD from covering mid-major basketball. And I know it's from the men's side, but it's the same argument. Like when you're in a small conference and you don't get the opportunities, because the Big East is a small conference to the SEC, and you don't get the opportunities of the quad one wins, it's not an equal resume. But if there's one factor that can create equality, it's head-to-head matchups. And so that to me is as logical and, crazy to think that, head-to-head would matter more. It's not like it happened at the beginning of the year. It's like, oh man, that South Carolina team is not the same team as it was in November, man. Woo! You wait till you play South Carolina again. It's like, we just played you. So, because that's people. Some people in like YouTube mentions will say that too. Like they'll say, yeah, but that was a couple weeks ago. We're playing great now. It's like, okay, all right, cool, man. So like, that to me is the issue. Is like, if I know it's the Big East is the haves and the have-nots, and the SEC is essentially just all halves. That's the problem.
Let me ask you this though: if UConn had played 10 more quad one wins, do you think they win all those quad one wins?
I don't know. It's a great question. I think the reality is we have to live in what we know, and what we know is that UConn kicked the living crap out of South Carolina. It broke their 71 game win streak. It's not like it was like just a regular Sunday afternoon game in Columbia. No big deal. And you said this, and so did I. They're going to a place where nobody ever wins.
Yeah, I think, and here's I think why I don't. It's not my hill to die on, because I think UConn going in as a number 2 seed adds a little bit of extra juice, and I'm willing to take that extra juice. Gino Auriemma is one of the greatest motivators in the history of college sports. So going in as a 2 seed, he's going to find a way to fuel that. I think we live in an analytic-centric world, whether we like it or not, and they're looking at those quad one wins. Those bracketologists, like, they don't have the heart or the feeling that we do about the game and what we see on the court. The eye test is less of a thing than it's ever been. But I think if we're talking about the 4th number 1 seed, I think that should be UConn over Texas.
Oh yeah,
because I think head to head, UConn beats Texas every time they play. And that could be some words I eat. I don't know if that's true for South Carolina. South Carolina is a very good team. They got hoodwinked on their home court. Like, let's not play like it was anything else. But if those two teams play 3 out of 3, it's a tight match most of the time.
Yeah, and I think I understand that. I think, but what I think we saw was like a perfect storm of how great UConn can be, and maybe South Carolina had an off night. I'll give them a little bit of grace, but because Dawn Staley is great and she deserves that kind of a little bit of I'll give her a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Just let them stew in that loss. But like, it's just one of those things where if we're talking strictly about analytics, I mean, UConn's number 1 in the net too. Like, I just feel like there's other things that you can point to. Yeah. If it's just about quad 1 wins, then what makes quad 1 wins? The net. Like, that's what we're talking about. And who's the number 1 team in the net? UConn. So
this is what I want to see. I want to see UConn and South Carolina in the title game, and I want to see UConn rip that title away from Columbia. I think it needs to happen on that stage because right now, South Carolina, they're the queens of women's college basketball. We can't deny that right now. They've been to the Final Four each of the past 4 seasons. They've won it twice. If the tournament was played in 2020, there was a good chance they won that thing too. So, and if that was the case, they could have just four-peated. If they hadn't lost to Iowa in their only loss of the season in the 2023 Final Four, we're looking at South Carolina playing for a 5th consecutive national championship. So I just want to underscore the dominance that they've had and respect that, because when UConn was winning this way, I feel like people weren't respecting it. Oh, they get all the best players, they're getting this. So I'm giving Dawn Staley her respect. And I do think that if UConn faces up with them in the national tournament, I think UConn gets that win because they're the more experienced team. I think Paige Bueckers has something to prove, and I think they want to rip that thing out of their hands, not just be handed the number 1 seed.
No, I agree. I love that. And so is that what's your ideal Final Four right now? Like if you could hand pick it, because since we're hand picking our seeds and we're not going by head to head.
I think that my ideal Final Four: UConn, South Carolina, UCLA, USC. I want to see those teams. I never want to see Notre Dame in the Final Four. I never want to see them get past the first round. I got to be honest with you. I just like to see them lose as a UConn fan, but I want to see UCLA and USC, who I think are 2 of the top 4 best teams in the country, duel it out. I want to see Juju Watkins showtime in the Final Four, but I ultimately want to see it come down to UConn and South Carolina, and I want to see UConn win that game.
How about you? Think yeah, that's a damn good one, because you got the 2 LA teams who've been battling all year. I definitely want to see South Carolina and UConn. I don't know. I want to see what the bracket is, because like if I say Texas and UConn's on the other side, but like I wouldn't mind seeing Texas in there because they're newer, but it's still Texas. It's newer to an extent. I thought that was a great story about the student journalist that drove 16 hours to Greenville, and the head coach from Texas, made it a point to say, hey, make sure you put me on your resume as a reference, and I'll make sure this story is told to your first employer. So yeah, I just that kind of sold me. I was like, all right, I like him. He's cool. Let's get Texas. Let's have Texas make a run. I don't know. Like I as long as UConn is in the Final Four, is for the good of the game. I want to see UConn, South Carolina, in USC. UCLA, I can take her or leave it. They're a good team. They won the Big Ten title. I think Lauren Betts is good for basketball. I think what they're doing out there is pretty special. So yeah, I think we were lockstep there. I think if we had the same Final Four, just because we'll be boring and have the same Final Four. But I don't know. I think there's something about having those two LA teams and then UConn and South Carolina that would be pretty cool.
Who's your Cinderella at this point? If you could pick a team that is a surprise to make it to the Final Four, who do you pick?
NC State.
Like it.
Yeah, that would be. They've beaten some good teams this year. Pretty much pick an ACC team outside of Duke. Like I think the Cinderella could be a Duke, could be a North Carolina, could be an NC State. But like one of those three, kind of in my backyard in North Carolina, I think could be a handful in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean NC State made it last year. weren't necessarily the favorite to do
Right.
it. Duke, I love the way they're playing. I think Duke, is a program that has a really rich women's basketball legacy. I think that would be a really cool thing to see them in the Final Four if they can make it.
Before we get to another segment, I'll tell you a quick former playing basketball myself. When I first moved down to Greensboro, this is like 13, 14 years ago. So I'm like 30 years old. So I'm a lot better shape, probably a little brasher, a little more arrogant when I'm coming to play a pickup game. And we're playing in Greensboro, and the women's team and the men's team would have their staffers, like they would jump in on the pickup game. And they had just hired, can't think of her name. I'll find it and send it to you. A women's graduate assistant that played at Duke the previous year. And I think they just went to the Final Four, and it was like, she was one of their best players. And oh my God, she crushed. I couldn't do anything against her. She was so good. It was mind-boggling to the 29, 30-year-old mind of a male basketball player that was just like, well, who am I guarding? Like, she was so good. You just brought that up, so I just had that flashback. So anyway,
yeah, I mean, some legends. You might be talking about Lindsey Harding. We got Monique Curry, Elena Beard, one of the best defenders in women's basketball history, as far as I'm concerned. So I love to see them back on the top, and I'm happy for Kara Lawson for where she's brought in that program.
Absolutely. All right. When we return, we're going to talk about, God, this is such a great subject. The Unrivaled season is coming to a close, and they're doing the playoffs and everything that comes with it. But we have a great topic about who are the all-time 3-on-3 teams in UConn history. We're going to talk about that. Big debate day here at Locked On UConn with T. Baker coming up after the break. Ever check your bank account and think, where'd all that money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you the full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just about another budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. Track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you can just stop managing money and start building wealth. I started using Monarch and was shocked at how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and actually save more. Plus, no more juggling apps. Monarch keeps everything in one place. And if you manage finances with a partner, Monarch makes it easy and seamless, letting you track shared personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take the control of your finances today. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. All right, we're back on Locked On UConn with T. Baker, contributor to Hoops Capital of the World, and our co-host on Fridays here on Locked On UConn. Thanks for being with us. All right, T. Unrivaled coming to a close. What have you thought about the season and the style of play so far this year?
I think Unrivaled's a great product. I think, anytime a new league is starting out, you're kind of trying to figure out, what works, what doesn't work. I think that the one-on-one thing was unique. I'm such a 5-on-5 mind. I love to see set plays, and I love that style. So it's an adjustment for me to see the 3-on-3 game, and especially to see the 3-on-3 game on a modified full court. But I think it's been a good product. I think it's exciting. I think it's a really unique way to get new fans into women's basketball that might not have watched the WNBA, but fall in love with some of these players or these personalities. So I thought it's been really interesting. Unfortunately, I don't get TNT on my regular cable, so I got to watch on the app on my phone. That's my only complaint. But I think that it's been really interesting. Their social media is really great. A lot of great clips, and I think it's been a pretty good product for the first year. I'm happy with where it's at.
I'm with you. I think as a connoisseur of 3-on-3, like in terms of playing and otherwise just understanding like the differences, it's interesting. I like the freedom of movement. I think that helps the product on when you're watching it visually. And also, you're right. Like I think it's just an ingenious product, because why not? Like, why wouldn't you try something new with stars of the WNBA? Like, I mean, it makes total sense. So yeah, I was a fan of it. I think the one-on-one thing sparked debates in I've seen it all over Instagram. in different socials where like the NBA players are like, we should do that. We should do the one-on-one, like a tournament at the All-Star game. So kind of would help them because some of their product has been kind of dropping a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I think, listen, leave it to the women to lead the way in innovation, right? And I think that's a great step. Do you think it'll exceed any other like 3-on-3 leagues in terms of like the big three or any of that stuff? Like the non-traditional leagues?
I hope so. I mean, the big threes, from my view, some like retired guys and folks who aren't in the prime of their career. So when you got the WNBA players playing at the peak of their careers against each other, I think that's a better product. So I think that the women in basketball have proven their ability to market themselves better on social media to bring in new types of fans. You got players like Angel Reese. You're going to have Paige Bueckers coming in. Juju Watkins will probably be on Unrivaled one day. So I think some of these big names will bring attention to the sport that it hasn't before. And I mean, I can't name a big three player. I can name a big three coach, Lisa Leslie, but I don't really know that I can name any of the players. And those players aren't in the prime of their playing careers.
Right. Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of, and don't people like this tournament. It's a fun tournament, and UConn had a team last year, but it's kind of like the what's the tournament that they had, Stars of Stores, with it's like in the summer, and it plays all over the country, and it's like all the different pockets of college, like, and it's older guys, like it's just alumni. It's like an alumni tournament, right? I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but so you're 1,000% right. All right, this is such a cool topic, and I'm giving you all the credit for this because you brought it up. So if you had a 3-on-3 tournament of everyone's in their prime, let's just say who's the 1 seed in this, before we even get into who you think wins, when you have Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Swin Cash is one team, Renee Montgomery, Maya Moore, Tina Charles, Mariah Jefferson, Stewie, Morgan Tuck, or the last is Paige, Azzi, Sarah.
I came up with the question and I stumped myself, but I got to give it to Sue, DT, and Swin.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because, they always say like you like the music from your youth the most because
everything's better when we're older. Yeah. Everything is, yeah.
So, I mean, those were the players I grew up with, but also Swin Cash, already a Hall of Famer. Sue Bird on a first ballot. Diana Taurasi, definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer. Those three are confirmed Hall of Famers with, I mean, and if we're talking about prime, I mean, Sue Bird is one of the best point guards, if not the best point guard in women's basketball history. Diana Taurasi is just an absolute killer, and Swin Cash, just same, like just national champion, WNBA champion, and just an absolute beast in the post. So I got to give them the number 1 seed, if not for anything else, just my own nostalgia.
Yeah, I'm going to throw another team out there. It's just, you talk about from your youth. I'm going to go way back to my youth. What if we had Lobo, Walters, Rosati? That would be another 3-on-3 team. That'd be pretty good because you'd have the Twin Towers with a scrappy quick point guard. She came on our show, did a great job. So yeah, I think that would be tough. Like, I think I have to agree with you. The only maybe slight is if you give the Renee, Maya, Tina team like the number 1 overall seed, because just Maya Moore is just so good. She just is, and she kind of reminds me of how I feel about Sarah when we watch her play now. And I know that's such a lazy comparison because that's what everyone's doing, but it's just hard not to. I don't know. Like I agree. I think we have to go there. I think they'd be the second. If they're the number 1 seed, do any of these teams beat them? Like if you played them like in a bracket?
I think that the team that has the best chance to beat them is the one you just named. Renee Montgomery, Maya Moore, Tina Charles. And that's because they're just both they're all so excellent at the positions they play. Tina Charles is one of the best bigs in UConn history. I think Azzi, Paige, and Sarah are still in the earlier phases of their career, so we don't have a full body of work to look at. Stewie, Mariah Jefferson, and Morgan Tuck won 4 national championships in 4 years, so it's really hard to take anything away from them. But if it's my bracket, I guess I'm old school. I'm putting that 2002 team of Sue, DT, and Swin against that 2009, 2010 team of Renee Montgomery, Tina Charles, and Maya Moore, and seeing who wins in the end. I think that's the team that has the biggest chance of defeating that number 1 seed.
No, I agree with you. Because Renee can keep up with Sue, and I like that. That's the biggest issue is like the guard matchups. Especially in 3-on-3 because there's so much room. And that's because that's what I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about, oh, they're just a better player. Who cares? Like that's not. But I'm playing 5-on-5. We're playing 3-on-3. So I think that would be the biggest issue there. All right, man. Listen, great stuff today. Tell everyone where they can find you and find your work, and we'll let you get out of here. Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so contributor here, Hoops Cap of the World, and then on the podcast on Fridays, also writing, covering the Big East this postseason over at the Next. So I'll be at the first and second rounds in stores for the NCAA tournament, and then over to the Final Four in Tampa. So looking forward to tracking Big East teams that are in the NCAA, the WBIT, the WNIT this postseason, as well as UConn's run to hopefully a 12th title this year.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again. We appreciate you. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. For T. Baker, I'm Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked in and stay locked on. And to remember, it's not how you get it done. It's about doing it in a way that it can't be done any better. That's how we like to do it and end our shows here at UConn. Go Huskies.